Nobody can make you feel anything. It is always a choice.
My parenting was on display.
If somebody you respected was there watching, what would you do differently?
Because your child is watching.
Connection reduces the need for correction.
Sometimes good parenting means allowing your children to do things that other people would judge.
Parenting is your most important role. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Extraordinary Family Life Podcast. We're your hosts, Greg and Rachel Denning. As always, here to give you tools and strategies to help you create your own unique, extraordinary family life.
Yes. And today's topic,
Go ahead.
jump in here. We are going to be discussing something that I've been posting on Instagram that's been very popular. Essentially, how we have raised 7 well-adjusted kids without yelling and tantrums. And of course, people are very interested in that concept, especially when I mentioned that we've done it while traveling or living in 60 plus countries on 5 continents, which inevitably, as you can imagine, and this is for real, brings in a lot of chaos, a lot of difficult situations, a lot of
Unexpected troubles.
exactly. And you're up late, you have to get up early, you're in all kinds of different places, you're sleeping in different places. Like there are so many scenarios where tantrums and yelling could be taking place. And yet we have managed to raise our children for the most part without yelling or tantrums. Now we're going to, of course, I always have to say, it hasn't been 100% tantrum or yelling free, but I would say most of what occurred happened early on when our children were small. We had 4 children under the age of 4 when we started traveling for the first time. And yeah, there was some yelling and tantrums. But I'll just get into this right now, that was actually, it actually became a catalyst for me. It became a motivator for me to figure out how to parent well, because I realized, especially as we started this travel lifestyle, that my parenting was on display. Like I had started as a stay-at-home mom and I stayed home with the kids while you went to work. And I'm going to be honest, like I allowed myself to yell, to get upset, to parent in ways that I would be embarrassed to have people see me parenting that way. Like I would be embarrassed by the way I behaved because no one else was around. I was alone with my children. And when I started traveling, that changed everything because I realized, oh my gosh, I'm no longer alone. My husband is seeing me parent. Strangers are seeing me parent. They're watching me at the airport or waiting for a bus or like at the store or at a restaurant. Like all these scenarios were now cropping up where my parenting was on display. And because I'm a self-conscious person, I guess, that bothered me.
I think it bothers everyone. I think that's a normal thing.
Right.
And it's actually a really good tool for all parents. So maybe you are at home and you aren't out traveling, but ask yourself, if somebody I respected were here watching, how would I handle this differently? It puts us in check.
It does, absolutely.
And it forces you to check this story we tell ourselves, the lie of like, well, this is the only way to handle this. My kids won't listen unless I scream or unless I go spank them, then they'll obey. But if somebody you respected was there watching, what would you do differently?
Exactly.
The first thought would be like, well, there's nothing I can do. And that's a lie. To sit with him like, wait, there's got to be other skills, strategies that work.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's good that you mentioned that because it is a strategy I began to use. Not only did I realize my parenting was on display when we started traveling, and most importantly, I wanted to be authentically good at it. I didn't want to put on some front of like, oh, look, I'm such a good mom. Look how good things are. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be real. Like I wanted to have real skills that worked, that produced positive outcomes. Not that I was worried about what other people were thinking, because sometimes good parenting means allowing your children to do things that other people would judge as bad, right? And that's fine
Because might be embarrassing.
Yeah, because I'm more concerned about the well-being of my child than I am about the opinion of a stranger, right? So I wanted it to be real, but I did also begin to use that. This is kind of a bonus strategy because we're going to go through 6 specific things that have helped us to do this. But this bonus strategy is I started to think of it that way. And in some ways it started by just thinking like, well, what if Greg were here? If he was here right now, how would I do things different? I would control myself more. I would be calmer. If my mother was here, if the neighbor was here, if whatever, if someone else was here, how would I handle this differently? And for most of us, we know we would not lose our shiz if someone else was watching, and especially, like you said, an adult we respected. We wouldn't. And yet we're willing to do it
in front of our own
in front of our kids because we somehow feel we are a victim of their behavior. And that's just not fair to the children. And it's not what's best for them either. And so that is, I hear a little bonus strategy of what I did of like imagining, well, how would I handle this differently if someone was watching me?
And I love shifting that context. Who are the most important people in our lives? Sincerely, truly. And for me, it's you and then our children. So those are the 8 most important people in my life. Why on earth would I allow my worst behaviors to come out to the most important people?
Yeah.
It's shameful. And yet if some stranger rings the doorbell, put on your best behavior. Are you kidding me? We've got it all backwards. And so our best behavior should be at home.
We should be, quote unquote, putting on our best behavior for our family. But more importantly, because again, I don't want it to be fake. I don't want it to be a mask. We should be becoming that best behavior.
Right. It's not a performance. It's not a facade.
Yeah.
It's who you're becoming. It's like these people matter so much to me. I'm going to change. I'm not going to allow this of myself. I'm going to become a better person.
Well, I just had another interesting insight that just flashed into my mind right now. Like, imagine your child as an adult standing there watching you parent them as a young child. Like, how would you feel? Because like we're saying, like, imagine someone's watching you. Well, your child is watching you. And sometimes we think like, oh, well, it doesn't count. And plus they're the ones that made me so mad. But if they were standing there as an adult watching you, how would you feel about that? And what kind of relationship would you have with them when they see you treating them that way? That's a check right there.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a framework here that's super important. We've talked about it at other times with controlling your anger and your own temper. It's this fact that nobody can make you feel anything. Other people cannot make you angry. They cannot make you sad. It is always a choice. And that's particularly true in our homes and in our families. Our children cannot make us angry. We choose to get angry. So we have to remind ourselves that other people's behaviors, even our children, are independent from our feelings. Not that we're numb, not that we don't feel anything, not that we don't care.
Not that there's not a connection there.
Right, there is a connection. It is important, and it's super important. You do care, and you love them, and you want the best for them.
Well, and I'm talking about there is a connection between other people's behaviors and how we feel. Like there is a connection, but
the point is we're not a victim.
Yeah. And I think,
oh, they did that, so I have to be mad. I have no other option but to be mad.
Right.
That's not true.
And I think that early on, that became a very important underlying framework in our parenting because we were studying things like the work of Wayne Dyer and other people, Deepak Chopra, and they talked a lot about that, how you are in control of yourself and your emotions and the interpretation you give things. And so we realized that we weren't victims to our children's behavior and that we were in control of how we responded. And if we felt certain emotions, and this is so true and so powerful that too many parents don't realize, you feel certain emotions about what your children do because you likely have unhealed wounds or trauma, big T or little t, that is being triggered by your children's behavior. So when your child does something, it's more a reflection of your own history than it is of them. And once you realize that and you start to use that and say, oh, wow, I feel angry because my child did this. And when I dig a little deeper, I realize it's because whatever, I behaved like that as a child and my father beat me, or this happened, or that happened. Then we understand why we have such strong emotions about their behavior, and we can go to the root of the cause, which is healing our own wounds, rather than taking it out on our children.
Yeah, very often we're angry or yelling at our own past.
Exactly.
Or ourselves, our own disappointments, our own frustrations.
Yeah.
Very often we find that my disappointment in myself, my frustrations and irritations with myself,
or my own pain because of my past,
things that
maybe even buried.
Right. It's bleeding out all over. But the kids or your spouse gets the bulk of it when it's really, that was just something that set it off. That was just the catalyst, not the main cause.
Yeah. So as we're going to go through 6 different things that have helped us be able to parent without tantrums, without yelling. And we literally have been able to prevent tantrums from occurring. Like in our younger children, I would say probably at least our first 3, maybe 4, we had tantrums. But after that, we have 7 children, if you don't know. I can't even think of a tantrum with our last 3 children.
No, and it stopped with the 4th one for sure. Like she was very little and we were learning how to handle all this.
Right. Because we learned how to prevent tantrums from happening, as we'll get into, because we realized that tantrums were a symptom of problems, not the problem itself.
Yep.
And
we shift our focus from correcting things that were going wrong to proactively and preemptively leaning into how can we make things go well.
Right. And which you're actually touching on one of the first ones, but the framework essentially is, and there's actually a pyramid that comes from The Anatomy of Peace. Is that the book it comes from? Where if you look at a pyramid and the tippy top of the pyramid is the little cap on the pyramid. And that is where most parents spend the majority of their time, and that's fixing what's gone wrong. It's trying to fix the behavior. It's trying to punish the tantrum. It's trying to give timeouts or spankings or like all the disciplining I can't even think of them because I haven't used them for so long. All the disciplining techniques. That's the top of the pyramid, and you're trying to fix bad behavior. The rest of the bottom of the pyramid, or you could think of this as like an iceberg, right? The top of the iceberg is fixing what's gone wrong. Everything underneath it, under the surface, is helping things go right. And that is where we learn to spend the majority of our time as parents so that we didn't have to yell, so that tantrums were no longer a problem, so that teenage rebellion didn't occur, so that, all of the bad behaviors that most parents are dealing with became a non-issue because we were focusing on the bottom half of the pyramid or the
not half
beneath the surface.
Let me say it a different way. So we have this image in our head, these numbers, 80% at a minimum. I'm thinking even up to 95% or 98%. Basically, the vast majority of all you do should be proactive and preventative.
Yes.
Like we're leaning into helping things work well in our families. That in and of itself prevents the vast majority of problems that parents experience with their children.
In fact, most of the challenges that parents are dealing with, whether it's fighting siblings, sibling rivalry, emotional meltdowns, tantrums, all the things, like we don't deal with, I would say, 90% of those problems. They're a non-issue, non-existent. We don't have talking back. We don't have rebellion. We don't have disobedience. We don't have
none of the eye rolling, the attitude, the defiance, none of that.
In fact, we have children that literally love spending time with us. Our 8-year-old is in love with us, literally. Even our teenagers who are 18, 19, 20, our 20-year-old, our 22-year-old, like they call us for advice. They love spending time with us. They love being with us. And just so we're not misunderstood, this doesn't mean helicopter parenting. This doesn't mean like dependent baby children who still need their mom and dad.
It doesn't mean they don't have friends or don't want to go out and have adventures on their own. They aren't launching as successful adults. It's none of that.
Right. It's everything you could imagine in the best way possible. Like the ideal of the good and the strong, the positive things, like that's what we have. And it's difficult to explain that to people. But we have confirmation because we welcome people to come stay with us here at the World School Family Resort. We have families here all the time. And again, I'm giving this for context, for validation, not because we're trying to praise ourselves here, but we want you to know that there's proof here. We're not just blowing our own horn. They come and they tell us like, wow, yeah, your teens are amazing. They help out. They're respectful. They're kind. They hug you. They want to do things with you. They help out. And your teens too, and your younger children, they're all like well-adjusted, right? So like we say, 7 well-adjusted kids. This is how we've done it. And that's what we want to walk through. But we want you to know that there's proof there, and it's not just our own viewpoint because we think our kids are the best, right? It's not that. So let's dive in.
Let's go.
Okay. So number 1, and I'm going to say here, I don't know that the order we're going to give these in are prioritized in a specific way. It's just like these are the things we used. And in some ways, it's like layers. It's like building a pyramid. It's kind of like you put them down and then you put on top. So it's like you're building on top of each other. So don't think that they're in a specific order for any specific reason. They're not per se. But one of the things we have done to be able to raise children without tantrums or yelling is that we always, and I say always intentionally, prioritize connection over correction. What does that mean? What does that look like?
I don't know. No, I was kidding.
I was going to keep talking, but I was like, I'm going to give you a chance to talk.
What I want to say right out the gates, because people hear that and they're like, no, but I have to correct my kids. We hear that a lot. It's like, I've got to correct them. I've got to tell them when they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to be misunderstood. It's like, yes, of course, the teaching and the correcting, the disciplining absolutely needs to happen. The challenge is we're usually doing it at the wrong time, in the moment when they're upset. And think about that. If your child's upset or you're upset and somebody's trying to tell you important information, how likely are you to absorb it, to make that connection when you're just hot-headed, you're angry, upset, frustrated, whatever? In the heat of the moment, somebody's trying to say, let me teach you a principle right now. You're not going to hear it. It's going away. So that is not the time to correct the behavior. It's when things have calmed down, when there's calmness and clarity and humility
and connection.
And connection. Yes, you're really connected now. And then you ask a question, bam.
Right.
That is real connection. So I want to emphasize this here. The absolute best way to correct our children and to, quote, discipline our children is to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to emphasize that enough. We think erroneously, that punishment is the trick.
Yeah.
If I punish my child, then the behavior will stop. That's not true.
And we're going to talk more about that.
Okay. Then I won't dive into it here.
Yeah.
But punishing is not the way. Teaching is the way.
Mm-hmm.
The most effective way to teach is to connect.
Yes.
The most influential teachers and mentors connect first.
Mm-hmm.
They prioritize connection over correction. So if I connect, then I can correct.
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln said that if you would win a man to your cause, you must first convince him that you're his sincere friend. Yeah. And that's never more true than in parenting. So when we think about, and when we say prioritize connection over correction, people think of something like gentle parenting or like permissive parenting, where there's no correction, there's no boundaries, there's no disciplining. And that is not the case at all. Yeah. What we are saying, though, is that we do not correct our child at the expense of connecting with them. So meaning we don't correct them in a way that's going to break our attachment with them, our bond with them. So
in other words, we're not harming the relationship.
Exactly. We're not harming the relationship in order to teach the principles that they need to know to help them be happy, to be successful, to interact appropriately with people. Like whatever the thing is, we do it in a way that, and this is the other key, we do it in a way that actually builds your connection with them as opposed to tearing it down.
Yeah. So after you correct and mentor them and help them get the lesson, like really truly get it, your relationship's actually better with them instead of worse.
Yeah.
And I can hear some of you resisting because I've heard it so many times. You think, nope, no, I have to correct my kids. They did something wrong. I'm going to drop the hammer. If that affects my relationship, so be it. It's my job to correct them and punish them. I can hear that, but you have to stop and question your methods.
Because if you're not getting the results, then your methods aren't working.
Exactly. So stop. And I understand what you're saying. The correction does need to happen, but the goal is like, let's step back and say, what is the most effective way for correction to take place? And it's through mentoring, generally with questions, where the child comes to his or her own conclusion and says to you, yeah, what I did was wrong.
Exactly.
And I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
When they come to the conclusion on their own and they say it out loud, that is impactful versus you saying, what you did was wrong. You should be ashamed of yourself and you need to tell me you're sorry.
Yeah. So the correction occurs, but it happens in a way that's more transformative to the child because they are coming to their own conclusion. So a couple of little quick examples here, like with a teenager, say they do something wrong that they shouldn't have done. And the tendency is to give them some sort of lecture or get after them or ground them or whatever. But ultimately, they feel resentment, they feel defensive, they feel angry at you. And so your connection is broken, like it puts a wedge there, and they don't really get the lesson
Right.
because of all those other emotions that are in a way. Now, if you switch this around and you focus on connecting with them, which may mean in the moment, you validate their feelings, you empathize with them, you're there for them to support them because all of us know that when we do something we shouldn't, unless these other feelings have gotten in the way and we've been trained to feel that way, we feel remorse, we feel shame, we feel guilt, we feel repentant, right?
Well,
That's the natural way of being.
We don't like ourselves.
Right.
This is so important because when your kids behave poorly, they almost always know it, and they don't like what they've done, and they don't like themselves. So if we come in and drop the hammer, we're adding to that. But when a person is already despising themselves and somebody comes in and starts telling them what do actually, they
get defensive.
They get defensive, exactly. So they start defending themselves instead of letting it calm down and saying, hey, let's talk about what happened. Then they themselves admit and say, yeah, what I did was wrong and I don't like it.
Yeah. So if you come in with this love and acceptance and validation, not that you're validating the offense or the crime and saying, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not that. It's saying, I'm still your parent. I still care about you, even if you make mistakes. That's ultimately what you're saying. Then either in the moment or later, you can have this discussion with them where you ask, especially with a teenager, but this also can work with younger children, you ask questions rather than telling them what they should think. So you say, well, what do you think about that? Was that the right choice? What could you have done differently? How could you have handled it better? And then they, like you were saying, say the things that you would have said to them anyways, but because they say them, it's more powerful and it actually creates the transformation that you want because they're the one coming to the realization. Now, with a younger child, say they're fighting, the siblings are fighting or something has happened. Again, you come with connection. You bring connection to them rather than correction. So you come into the situation, you validate feelings. Yes, that was so rude. I can understand why you feel like that. Let me help you. Let me give you a hug. Let me help you calm down. You bring this sense of connection to them. And then the same thing, you can ask questions, you can do role playing, which we'll get into more of that in a minute. But I just want to have that framework in mind of like, you're bringing connection to the situation rather than the correction.
And have that be your mindset. So let's say your two kids are fighting and you're like, ooh, I'm going to go up there and correct this behavior. Think first, connection over correction. So let me go connect with them. And they're fighting and they're screaming, they're maybe hitting each other, fighting, and you're upset. It's interrupting everybody. And you want to just get after them. Don't do it. Go up there. And usually it's some kind of pattern interrupter first. Because if they're just duking it out and you're like, guys, I understand how you're feeling. And I know it's not, like, it usually doesn't work. So there's some kind of pattern interrupter like, hey, whoa, let's just stop this for a second and connect, then correct.
Give an example of a pattern interrupt because people might be like, what are you talking about? What do you mean?
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stop what's happening because it's a cyclical pattern or they're in the middle of a fight.
But you're trying to do it without control or force.
Or joining the fight. Because if I go up there, like, I'm correcting them, then I end up joining the fight. Now there's three of us fighting. And how dumb is that? So I'm going to do sometimes it's funny stuff. Sometimes it's playful stuff.
Sometimes it's goofy stuff. I'll literally like go, and
then like your kids are squabbling in the room, and you go on and turn on a fun song
Their favorite song.
and blast it like boom, and so they're like, what the heck? And it's like their favorite song, and you're over there like dancing.
Weird, and they're like, oh, you're weird dancing, Dad. Why?
Weird. Stop, Dad. We're in the middle of a fight. And then you kind of dance over, you dance in between them, and they're like, what is wrong with you? What you're doing is you're breaking the
You're
pattern.
interrupting the drama.
You're interrupting what's going on. And they're like, this is so weird. And again, depends on the kid, depends on the situation, depends on the relationship. You might walk in and grab a little squirt bottle and like, psh, psh, and they're like, what? And they're like, okay, pattern interrupt. Or you might always walk in and hug them both. Or you might run in. I would do this because I have this relationship with my kids. I'd run in and tackle them and start wrestling and tickling. And be like, what? You guys want to fight? Let's go.
Yeah.
And start all over. And
but it's a playful fighting. So
within a minute, they're laughing and playing and squealing and tickling. And they're like, oh, and then I cuddle them up. I'm hugging them. And I can physically see them relaxing, and I can sense and see the emotions coming down. And once they're down, hey guys, what's going on? And they tell me, and it's like, okay, I get it. And then start asking questions.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure we specifically talk about this, but it's a good time to bring it up. We often, especially in a scenario that involves 2 children or more, we validate everyone's feelings and we point out that they all contributed to it. Too often it's too black and white. Right. They're like, you're wrong and you're right. And so then it's like, you're picking sides or this or that. We never do that. We're like, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. Especially as we ask these questions to help them point it out. We're like, yeah, all of you contributed. All of you could have done something better to make the situation better. You all have fault in this. And by equalizing the fault and the quote unquote blame, it makes everyone feel heard and they don't have to be defensive because they're the victim of this situation.
Again, the best way to get there is questions that draw them out to that conclusion. And again, I can hear some of you say, well, I don't have time to go around and have a Socratic discussion every time my kids fight. Well,
then you're going to be dealing with a lot of fighting.
Until you can get there, you might have to spend a lot of time having questions and get there. But I also want to say on the other side, there's times when you're like, hey, okay, guys, let's see this differently. And sometimes
I have to get a little feisty about it for a second, though, because this is the thing. Parents are complaining to us about how much time their kids spend fighting. And then they say things like, well, I don't have time for that kind of intervention. Well, that's why you spend so much time listening to them fight. That's why there's so much contention in your house. Because if you don't spend the time investing in these types of approaches, then you're going to get the opposite results. And so, yes,
it'll be scattered throughout years and years and years. Yep.
Exactly. So you're going to spend time either way. It's like, which result do you want? Now, the other benefit, though, is that when you spend this time investing, well, now we eliminate most of the problems. So we're not doing this every single day because we've invested.
We don't do it at all now.
Right. It's very rare or it's small. Because we do still have an 8 and 11-year-old, right, that have their little things. But it's so small because we've made the investment early on that, yes, took more time. Mm-hmm. But now we have the benefits of that. Right. That's what investing is. So you have to be willing to invest in your kids.
Ooh, especially investing when they're young and helping them keep understanding it when they're young. Then when they're teens, they don't fight anymore.
Right. And then plus, because they're older, years, they pass that culture on to the children, the younger children. And so it becomes a part of the family culture. And so it's like a non-issue because they're like, oh, well, this is how we do things in our family. Okay. The other thing before we move to number 2 is I also want to emphasize that prioritizing connection over correction does not mean just in the moment of trying to fix what's going wrong.
Right.
We have to also remember the pyramid of peace. We have to do this intentionally, daily, to prevent things from going wrong by helping things go right. Yeah. So we have to regularly be connecting with our kids because when we connect with our kids, they feel happier. And when they feel happier, they're nicer to their siblings. They are more responsive to you. They're going to be more likely to do what you ask.
Well, and they're going to be more self-directed.
Yeah, because they feel close and connected to you. A close and connected child is a happy child that's obedient, that is easy to get along with. If they aren't that way, it's because they don't feel connected to you, the parent, the most important person in their life.
Yep. So in a very real way, connection reduces the need for correction.
Exactly. Right.
This one's so profound and so important. So prioritize connecting with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think there's two problems here. There's a lot of parents, they're so busy in their own lives doing their own thing. The only time they show up for parenting is when, there's something I have to deal
Exactly.
with here. I have to put out a fire. So, put on my parent hat because I had to be a fire. Otherwise, I was just doing my own thing, living
Right.
my own little life. And, you've interrupted my life again. I have to come over and correct you.
Yeah.
That's not how this works.
Mm-hmm.
You are a parent. It's your number one most important priority and role. It's the most important work you do. I mean, the only thing above that is marriage, but keeping your marriage good. And then as parenting is concerned here, this is your most important role. Spend your time doing it.
Yeah.
The second piece is most people have they've never been exposed to, they don't even know
Because there's
parents
so
and
much bad
children.
parenting out there.
Yeah, they don't know parents with children that have a phenomenal world-class relationship. They've never seen it. They don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So they just think, man, the relationship I have with my kids is infinitely better than the neighbors
Mm-hmm.
and the lady I see down in school and that guy at church and that I had with my parents. Like, this is good. My relationship is good. But what you're doing there is you're basing your results off a scale that's way below you. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't serve you because you think, for example, let's say, person A thinks that their mediocre relationship, we would call it mediocre. It's like, that's just kind of average. It's decent. It's okay. But it's way better than the terrible ones. So they think it's really, really good, but it's not. And compared to somebody who has a world-class relationship with their kids, it's so far down the scale.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're thinking through this, like, no, I want the best possible relationship that's available.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of relationship we're going after.
And that's the kind of relationship your children want to have with you.
Yep.
They literally want it so badly. I think too few parents really understand how much their children want to have an amazing relationship with them.
Well, okay, so even by you saying that, they're like, no, they don't. My kids just want to spend time with their friends. They want to be on their devices. They want to play their games and toys. And I hear this all the time. And I hear people teach it all the time. It's like, hey, look, your kids only want to spend time with you for the first several years. And then after that, they won't be interested in you. Well, that's common because it's so
prevalent.
And it's unhealthy. The reason that happens is because parents don't have great relationship with their kids, or I'm going to be frank here. You're boring or you're unpleasant to be around.
Well,
So no wonder your kids are growing up and they look at you and they're like, why would I want to spend time with you? You're not doing anything. You're not going anywhere with your life. You're unpleasant to be around because you're always complaining or grumpy or upset about
getting
something,
after me.
or you just sit around. You come home, you plop down on the couch and you do nothing. You're just getting fat and old and like this, you're so lame. Why would I want to spend time with you? That's just the truth of it. So if you're boring or you're unpleasant, then change. Stop being boring. Stop being unpleasant. Be a very attractive character.
Attractive person, yeah.
Yeah, be somebody that like your kids want to spend time with you because you're cool.
Yeah.
And you do cool things and you're smart and you're wise and you're insightful.
You're funny.
And you're funny and you're inspiring. Like you're doing something with your life. Like, gosh, I want some of that.
Yeah.
If that's who you are and you have a good relationship with your kids, they want to spend time with you.
Exactly. Plus, I have to point this out because I feel that it's so important for parents to understand and they don't realize it because they don't have the clinical understanding or the psychological understanding as far as development goes. Part of the thing that's happening and playing in here is that your children have, and I have to use this word, even though I hate it when people label things or turn everything into a disorder, but I feel that it's important because it helps us know what's going on. Your children have an attachment disorder because if when they were younger, their needs were not met, they weren't connected with as much as they wanted because young children really want to connect. They learn how to protect themselves essentially by disconnecting and distancing themselves from you. So yeah, they start to not be interested in you at all because you weren't interested in them. That's how it begins.
It's a survival mechanism.
It is.
And
It's
in
a
way,
survival mechanism.
you're right. They're protecting themselves. Like, I don't want to lean into my parents
Yeah.
because last time I tried, they pulled away and I felt rejected.
Exactly. I literally read a comment on Instagram today that broke my heart. This woman said, I was sharing a reel from I don't think she's specifically a doctor, but Erica Comiser, and whose work is incredible. And in the comment to this reel, this woman said, well, I had a clingy 2-year-old and I went away for a week or 10 days. And when I came back, she was fine. In fact, she was more connected to her dad. And it broke my heart because she doesn't realize it, but I realized what she was saying. First of all, her child was clingy, which means she already was dealing with an attachment disorder. If your child is clingy or needy or disconnected, it's because they're not feeling connected from you. Their needs have not been met. So already the relationship was fractured. And then she left. And when she came back, the child was more connected to the father. Well, because, and I know people feel like this is drastic.
Survival.
She felt abandoned by her mother.
Yep.
And so she was connecting more with the father to try to fulfill that need. And so it's so sad, but that's the foundation, which later as a teenager means this teen is not going to listen to you. They want nothing to do with you. In fact, they may even hate you. Yeah. And it started there. And I know this feels drastic to people and they feel like this is extreme, but it's not. I'm telling you, after decades of research and having raised our own 7 children and working with thousands of clients, I'm telling you, it's not extreme. This is really what's happening. We have to understand how important these small things are stacking up to create these results that we don't want. And so we have to go back to this. We have to focus on connection before correction, but we also have to make that connection a daily intentional effort. It means little things like responding to a baby's needs when they cry, not letting them cry it out, not sleep training. It means comforting your child when they're going to throw a tantrum, or ideally before they throw a tantrum, so that they don't have to throw the tantrum because you're there meeting their needs instead of expecting them to act older than they are. It means looking them in the eyes when you talk to them, rather than, I see so many parents parent their young children as though they're literally a thing, an object. It's like they don't even look at the child or talk to them. They just make them do whatever they want them to do with no communication or respect. It's really sad to me.
Yeah.
But it means spending, giving them a hug every morning and every night and telling them you love them and hugging and cuddling. It's all of those things throughout the day that work on the bottom part of the pyramid to help things go right.
Huge.
Okay.
Just to not be misunderstood. I don't want people thinking, well, wait a minute, as a mom, I can never have time away from my kids.
Never do anything.
That's not the case. If you have a fantastic connection and a great relationship with your kid, and then you need to take some days away for a trip or whatever's going on, it's okay. The child will miss you. You'll come back. It'll be great. But if you're not making those deposits and those investments, if the connection is weak and you go away, it's extreme. It feels like abandonment, and it leaves scars and wounds.
Yes. Yep, exactly. Okay, number 2. Again, not in any specific order, but this is a key ingredient. It's to see, quote unquote, bad behavior as a symptom, not the problem. Too many parents view the bad behavior as the problem they're trying to solve. And so they want a technique, they want a hack, they want a trick they can use to fix the problem, which is not really the problem, it's the behavior. So they want a timeout, they want a punishment, they want a thing they say, they want to take things away, they want to whatever to fix the problem, but it's not the problem. The behavior is a symptom of a bigger underlying problem, or even a smaller underlying problem, but it's the symptom. So every time we saw bad behavior, we never tried to fix it because we realized, oh, this is a symptom. And so we would ask ourselves, we would say, why is my child acting like this?
What's causing this?
What's causing this behavior?
It's the cause and effect framework.
Exactly.
The behavior is the effect. What's the cause?
Right.
Where most of us think the behavior is the thing.
Yeah, it's the thing that has to be fixed. It's the thing that has to be punished. It's the thing that has to be corrected. It's not. So when you switch your mindset to this, you go upstream to look at what is causing this behavior. And that can be things as simple as they didn't get enough sleep. They're tired. They're hungry. They feel disconnected from you.
Well, their human needs aren't being met.
Yeah. I mean, in some way or form, essentially, one of their basic human needs is not being met, whether that's food, shelter, connection, whatever.
Well, certainty, uncertainty, connection, significance, all
Yeah.
of that.
So their human needs are not being met. That's the short answer to why they're misbehavior.
And okay, so this is really good, because when we stop here and just one principle here, we say, well, don't focus on the effect, focus on the cause.
Mm.
I think it was Thoreau said, for every 1,000 people hacking away at the branches of a problem, there's one person going to the root. So if as parents we stop, we got to go to the root. And then you guys hear us in 60 seconds say, well, the root could be, any of this vast array of human needs or human drives. All of a sudden you're like, well, I need to understand all of this psychology and all the sociology and all of this stuff about what it means to be a human being, so that I can know what's the cause of my kid's tantrum.
Right.
And the answer is, yep.
Ultimately.
Right. Yeah. So buckle up. You decided to have kids, you have kids. Like, that's the nature. If you want to do this well, you have to lean in, which is literally why you and I, Rachel, we do coaching. We have courses.
It's why we
put all of this in there, because there's so much to it.
Yeah. It's why we're creating the Extraordinary Parent Mentoring Method course, because we want to outline all of these things in there. But the good news is, I think especially when they're younger, the solutions are easier because
It's the same when they're older too.
It's often food, sleep, or cuddling. Like, those three things would fix a lot of problems. If your child is acting up, if they're throwing a tantrum, if instead of yelling, you did one of those things, you fed them, you laid down with them to take a nap, or you cuddled with them, that would solve most of your problems. Now, as they get older, I think it gets a little more complex, because you have to get into, because the human needs get more complex, I think, as they get older, because there's more variables and nuances and interaction with neighbors and friends and the girl they like and the person who was mean to them. There's more of that you have to help them kind of sort out and process and work through. And so, you do need to become an expert in child psychology, right? In order to help them work through these things. But the point is, like, again, are you willing to invest in your kids so you get better results? Or are you just going to keep living a life with frustrating, annoying, irritating results, so that you don't really like being a parent because you're not very good at it, and your kids don't like being around you, and the family culture is unhappy and unpleasant? Like, that's the alternative in my mind. So it's worth the investment.
Right.
It's worth doing the work. It's worth doing the research. It's worth learning all of these things, because you get way better results.
Yeah.
And your life is way better and happier.
Otherwise, you quite literally do not understand what's happening.
Right.
How frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I have the right words for that. Is when you don't know what's going on or why it's happening.
Well, and then that also means you can't help your child. And so then the pattern, or the generational pattern of cluelessness continues on, because you're like, well, I don't know. That's just
It must
life.
just be because they're kids.
Right.
Because they're 7 or 17.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear most parents saying. Well, they're just being teens. Oh, it's the hormones. They say stupid things like that. Oh, it's just a hormonal teen. No, it's not. Nothing to do with that at all.
I mean, it can be connected to that, but the point is, there is an answer. There is a solution. There is a way to help them work through.
You made it sound like it can be connected to their hormones. It's not. Because when you dig into the research, what's happening are the changes that are happening in their brains.
Well, specifically with a teenage brain, yes. But I'm also saying there's definitely hormonal things going on, especially for women, girls, because they're having their periods and they're learning all these things, and they're trying to understand their hormones and their cycles. And
yes.
And many
so then there's
moms don't
a
even know
28-day
that.
cycle that's going, and
Right.
None of those 28 days is exactly the same.
And a lot of moms don't even know that's going on, so they can't help their daughters. So it becomes this like mess of
It's,
soup. It's like,
it's ignorance and misunderstanding. And
right.
if we can get down to the cause, the root cause of these things, then it's so easy to address and change.
Yes. And we also, though, we don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, now this is hopeless because I have to get a master's or doctorate in child psychology in order to help my child. That's not what we want you to feel. Because the beautiful thing about this is that even when you start to learn even a little bit,
Yep.
even listening to this podcast, you're going to have that much more knowledge that's going to make things that much better.
Exactly.
Like it's incremental. It builds upon itself. So
Wait,
it's not
okay. So let's come
all
up
or
with a scenario,
nothing.
right? You're exactly right, and we want to give. So we want to I don't know. I purposely want to overwhelm you a little bit here, so you pay attention. You're like, oh my gosh, I got to pay attention. But then I also want to give you tons of hope and specific strategies to say you walk upstairs. Your 11-year-old is just devastated, crumpled on the floor. All is lost. And instead of freaking out and
Getting upset at them or telling them to control themselves.
Why is this happening? What's the cause here? What's the catalyst? And you think for a second to see if there's anything that's obvious. Could it be a lack of sleep? Could there be something going on? So instead of me just reacting to what I see, I pause and say, okay, this is a symptom of a bigger problem. So I'm not even going to address the problem. I'm not going to go,
You don't
get
have
up,
to.
stop acting like that. What's that? Blah, blah. I'm going to sit down and like, hey, come here. Come talk to me for a second. Let's go. What's going on? And I'm going to let him talk for a minute.
I need to interject for just a minute because I know as a mom, I often felt that if I was going to be a good mom, I had to do something about the problem right then. I had to get involved at that moment and fix it, solve it, wrecked it, or else I wasn't a good mom. And this idea that I was just going to let it go and not address it right then, it was like, oh, I'm a bad mom because I'm letting it go. And I think that's part of our culture of like a child does something bad and the parent has to punish right then, or they have to get after them.
You have to react to the action.
And that's often the wrong thing to do.
100%.
And so you don't have to
Let's redefine that.
Yeah.
Good parents go to the root cause of the problem.
And
they don't just address.
To correct. They don't get right in it. In fact, when you're talking about, you go up and you see your 11-year-old, my most likely response is to go up there. And because I already have that relationship, it's easier for me now. I would go up and I would literally hug and hold them. And I don't have to fix the problem. I don't have to get after them. I would just cuddle with them and hold them. And then, and then I would be able to ask questions. What's going on? Why are you feeling like this? What's happening? And because we have done this and our kids know how to do this as well, my 8 and 11-year-old are great at articulating their feelings to me. They're great at unpacking what's happening to them. And they can tell me, well, it's this, and it's because my sister said this, and it's because this happened, and I feel frustrated. Like they know how to articulate the words and to expound on what's happening to them because we have modeled this and role played it for them and we've provided that space for them. That is what helps to create a well-adjusted child.
Yep.
Like it helps them have the tools themselves to be able to do those things rather than requiring me to correct, discipline, fix. Like that's not what we want. We want them to be able to do it themselves because that's what's going to help them move into adulthood.
Yep. So just like it's true for you and for me as adults, it's often more than just the thing. It's not just what's on the surface. There's stuff underneath it.
Mm-hmm. There's layers.
And so if you're frustrated or upset about something and you start unpacking it, like, okay, there's some underlying frustration here. Like I'm still upset about this thing that happened a few years ago, or I'm still questioning my own worth. I'm still wondering if I'm likable and lovable. And so when somebody does something mean to me or says something mean, it's not necessarily just that act that makes me hurt so bad. It's like I'm still wondering back when I was a child if I'm even lovable.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's stacked for us as an adults, then you start thinking, well, I wonder if it's stacked for the kids too. And so you find your 11-year-old and you think, I wonder right now, like let's talk through this. And you start realizing like she's sitting here wondering like, yeah, Well, the other day, one of my friends said something mean, and I started wondering if I'm even a likable person,
Mm.
if I'll ever have friends, or if maybe it's me, maybe it's my fault. So then this little interaction with her sister or brother today triggered that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we go to the cause and we help address the cause, then the problems, so many of the problems just go away on their own.
Exactly.
So powerful.
Okay, let's move to number 3. Parent, and in this case, I like to remind parent is a noun, but it's also a verb. So in this case, parent, the verb, with clarity, not with threats, punishments, or bribes. So what that specifically means is that too many parents are too vague. They're not clear enough. And part of the problem is because they themselves are not clear enough. They don't know. So a child does something and they say, don't do that, or stop being mean, or stop whatever. That's vague, it's unclear, it's non-specific, and it's not helpful. So because the child is unclear about what you're saying, because you're unclear about what you're saying, they keep doing the thing. And so you threaten them, or you punish them, or you try to bribe them into doing the right thing when they probably don't even know what the right thing is, because you have been unclear about it.
We hear this all the time.
Yes.
Like, oh, no. I have told them 10,000 times
Right.
not to be rude to their siblings. And so then I talk to the kid. I'm like, hey, you're like, I wasn't being rude.
Right.
Wait a minute. Like, did your parents tell you not to be? Oh, yeah, my parents told me not to be rude, but what I was doing is not rude.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, what did you do? And they're like, oh, I did this, this, and this. And that's not rude. Like, okay. So what's happened is it's like this difference in definition.
Yeah.
Or difference in paradigm. So you say don't be rude and includes all these things, but you never explain that.
Right.
And the child's like, well, I wasn't being rude. I was just
Exactly.
doing this.
Yeah.
And so it's a total miss. And you guys there's punishment, there's frustration. The kid's going to be livid. Like, you're punishing me for being rude when I wasn't being rude.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be so angry and so resentful and rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, now you're just
It's not
making
fair.
crap up. Yeah, not fair. I hate what you're doing.
Right.
This is ridiculous because I didn't do it. And it all stems from a lack of clarity.
Exactly. So the more clear, the more specific we can be in our own minds, but then also to articulate that to our children, the fewer problems we're going to have. Because if I can go to my child and say, when you do that and you say it in this tone, at least to me and to your sibling, it sounds mean. It sounds rude. So, here's a way we could probably do it better. Let's practice. Let's do some role playing and let's speak in different voices. I'm going to talk like this. I'm going to talk like this. I'm going to talk like that. And see how they sound so that we are more aware of what different tones sound like. So then now there's more clarity about what you're exactly saying. And then if it comes up again, you're like, oh, that was kind of like that, grumpy voice that we practiced the other day. That sounded like that to me. Let's try a different voice. Let's use one of our other voices that we practiced. It's very specific and you've practiced it so they know exactly what you're talking about. There's a frame of reference. And so when you tell them later, because you're going to need to, they know what you're talking about and you're more clear. And now you don't have to threaten them. You don't have to punish them. You're just simply reminding them of something they have been taught in a way that they understand.
Yep. The best correction is teaching.
Right.
Act it out, role play, give as many examples as you can, like see the whole like rotisserie chicken from every angle. Keep going at it from different parables, stories, examples until it finally clicks. Because you might be over here, it's like, well, it's like this and like that. And the kid's like, I don't get it. And then you relate it to something that he's connected to.
Like a movie or a book or
something that he's fascinated with, or basketball. Like, okay, hold on. Let me walk through this. You're on the court. The referee does this. The coach does that. Does that make sense? He's like, oh, okay, I get it. So it's called assimilation.
Mhm.
Like, you're making connection. The learner gets it.
It assimilates into their brain. It
Right,
literally
it's like,
connects into the neural connections that are already
I
there.
get that one. Or it's, hey, it's like in this book you love, or that movie. Yeah. Oh, okay, I got it.
Mhm.
And then I remember years ago practicing tone, because the kid were like, hey, try that again, buddy. What? All I said was this. I'm like, yeah, exactly. How we say things matter. No, it doesn't. It's the same. I'm just saying words. All right, let's walk through it.
Mhm.
And we would use words that could be negative, neutral, or positive, depending on how they're said. So we're getting very clear and very specific, and then having them repeat it back. So there's like, okay, they get it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's very important for parents to understand in this process that you should welcome, and not get upset when your children talk back or argue with you during this process, because what they are doing is assimilating the information. Like, they're
Well,
asking
and seeking
questions.
clarity.
Yeah, they're
They're
seeking
like,
clarity. They're asking questions. To you, it might seem like they're being disrespectful,
Mhm.
and you should again be clear about how it looks like respect, like how to have this conversation in a respectful way. But they are essentially trying to grasp the information and saying, well, what about this? Or no, it's not like that because this, or no, I disagree. That's okay. That's a good thing. That's
very good
literally
thing.
how they're assimilating it as a part of their way of being, by having that conversation with you. So welcome those kind of conversations instead of shutting them down and telling them they're so disrespectful, or like, now you're going to get extra punishments, or, that's not a healthy way to approach it if you want to have well-adjusted kids. You want them to own the information for themselves. And they're only going to do that if they're able to dialogue with you in debate and conversation to really grasp it.
Yep. So please encourage the debating process
And definitely don't shut it down.
to go to clarity. What happens when you
Exactly.
shut it down? And I deal with this all the time as I'm working with families. When you shut it down, the kid feels like, I can't come to clarity. I'm confused. They're doing something. I don't understand it. I disagree with it. So then it starts insulting. Like, you suck. You're the worst parents on the planet. You guys are horrible. I hate you.
It's the only thing they have left.
And it's like, that's all they have left. It's like, throw darts. And so the parent's like, well, you're just a little brat. You're spoiled and entitled. You're horrible. I'm like, wait, what's going on here?
Mm.
Okay, everybody calm way, way down. Come all the way back down here. What's going on? It's like, well, we asked him to do this and he did that, or she did that.
Or he said no, or he asked a
Okay,
question.
wait a minute. Okay, what did you ask? Okay, and what did you understand? They're like, no, that's not what I heard. That's not what I didn't know that. It was a total lack of clarity. So back at the beginning, there was a misunderstanding. What was said and what was heard, very different. But since they're not allowed to talk about it, say, hey, wait a minute, why? That's dumb. Like, wait a minute, okay, why do you think it's dumb? Well, because of this and this and this. Oh, interesting. So if our kids were our kids would do this, like, Dad, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me why you think it's dumb. Well, because my friend's going to do this, or
First
other
of all,
people.
right there, we don't get upset if they say something like that.
Right.
Like, that's dumb. We're like, okay, great. That's their opinion, and they're allowed to have their opinions. Let's talk through it
So I
and see
ask
why.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm like, hey, this needs to happen. That's dumb. Okay, tell me why. So literally, that's how I do it. Exactly, I say that right now. Okay, tell me why. I'm not upset.
You're not disagreeing.
I'm like, what?
No, it's not.
It's not dumb. It's all, and I say so. Well, when I was a kid, whatever. I'm not going to go on this big long lecture, whatever, and say, okay, interesting. Walk me through that. They're like, well, other people do this. Okay, let's walk through that. What's the end result of those things? Keep going. Okay, walk me through that. Well, they get to do this. Okay, and let's keep going. And so I walk them down that road. And I'm asking questions. And so they're mentally going down there and they're putting in the framework. They're putting all the pieces together. They're getting real clarity that basically what you're doing, you're teaching your kids to go to different levels of thinking. Because if it's just first level thinking of like, why can't we just do whatever we want? Why can't I just entertain myself to death all the time? Why can't I just be out all night long, just doing whatever I happen to feel like doing? Why can't I just play video games endlessly? Because that's what I feel like doing. And so you walk them down that road asking questions, and they go to the next level and the next level and the next level, and they get down there and they're like, oh,
Yeah, I don't want that.
actually, that would suck. I don't want that.
Right.
Like, yeah, I don't want that for you either. That would be terrible. So let's walk back up here to this action. So what can you do instead? And like, man, I should really put some limits on that. That's great, buddy. What limits would you put? Right. So instead of me saying, you only get this much time, or I'm not allowing you to do that. Like, what do you think, bud? Like, man, I should really limit it to this. And it could be food or entertainment or whatever. But they're coming to the conclusions and say, well, how can you remind yourself of that? He's like, oh, I should use a timer and alert. So they're setting up systems for success. And then here's the golden ticket. I've got to teach this one because parents drop the ball on this so much. Hey, bud, if you do mess up, what would be an appropriate consequence for that, man? And here's what kids are really good at, and they need this. So parents, man, listen up. The consequence has to be natural and relevant. It has to be connected. It cannot be arbitrary. If the kid like sneaks video games till 2 a.m. and you say, that's it, no more jujitsu for you. It's like, what in the world? Like,
And I'm sure people listening say, well, that's stupid. There's plenty of parents that do those types of
they
things.
take away something totally unrelated. And they're like, well, I'm taking away a privilege. I'm like, no, that's not a privilege. Every kid needs those good things. So never, ever, ever, parents, never take away good things. Ever. Those are never taken off the good table or off the table as a consequence. Like, always keep the good things in and make sure it's related. Anyways, I want to come back to the point. Let the child choose the consequence and say, yeah, man, that's good. Let's write that down. That was a really good idea. Way to go, bud. That was a really, really good idea. You walked through that. You set up your own standards. It's yours. It's not mine. I didn't tell you to do that. You set up your own standards. You set up your own system to follow through, and you're agreeing to a consequence so that you don't do that. So it's a natural thing. It's all set up. So then if something happens, the child already walked through it all and came up with it.
Right.
You don't have to do all that in the enforcing. It's so powerful.
You don't have to threaten. You don't have to punish. You don't have to bribe because
Exactly.
they are the ones that created the clarity on what's expected and then what's the consequence as a result. I think I just want to point out before we move to number 4, another great benefit of having the space for these types of conversations that kids love is I can't even tell you how many times my kids have convinced me that their idea was better. Because I would say something like this, and then they'd be like, well, no, what about this and this and this? I'm like, yeah, you're right. Let's not do that then.
Yep.
And kids love that.
Absolutely.
Because they feel respected. They feel heard. They feel like they have a voice. They feel like I'm going to listen to them and make course adjustments when they have good ideas.
Yep.
That's what you want from your children. You don't want to be the one who's in charge that makes all the decisions, who does all the thinking in the house, and nobody else can.
A dictatorship.
That's called control, and it does not create healthy families. So we allow this space for discussion because we want the ideas of our children.
Yep.
We want them to contribute. We want them to give feedback and provide alternative options. Like, that's what we want, because then we become this team, especially as they get older, that can work together, that can do more than the whole. Like, the sum is greater than the whole.
Yes, and the kids become self-directed. So whether I'm there or not, they make good choices.
Exactly.
They think clearly,
Right.
make good decisions, follow through, take good actions. Like, I don't have to be there babysitting and policing.
Because they realize that the goal is not to be obedient to mom and dad. The goal is to think and make good choices.
Yep.
That's the goal. And when they recognize that that's allowed, like they can do that, and what they end up doing is the decision that they came to because it's the good decision, the right decision, not just because it's what mom and dad wants, then they start to integrate that into their life, and it's beautiful. It's magic. That's
amazing.
what you want.
Now, I hear some of you saying, well, my kids, whenever they argue back, they have dumb ideas. Okay, that's
because
going
they
to
haven't
happen.
practiced thinking
Right.
yet.
And they have underdeveloped brains, and they're only seeing it first level. So they're like, well, no, I think I should be able to do this all the time whenever I want. It's like, okay.
Help them walk through that. Help them think through it.
If parents, if you don't have the cognitive ability to persuade your children of good ideas and help them see good, better, and best, that's something you have to improve. You got to work on that. That is a skill you got to do. If you can't persuade a 6-year-old or a 16-year-old that the way you're thinking about it is the better way, and they get it and agree, then you're lacking some very critical skills, and you have to get there. Because if my son or daughter comes to me and they think, hey, my idea is better, and in my mind, I'm like, that is not a better idea.
But you can't convince them?
I have to be able to persuade them and convince them through articulation, through thought, through dialogue, not because I said so and I'm the boss.
Well, because that's just using force and threat, and that's the lower form of communication.
Right. It's the lowest form.
And ultimately, everyone resents that.
Yep.
Whether that was you as the adult or your child, we resent being told we have to do something just because someone else is bigger, stronger, in charge. We all hate that.
Yep.
And so it doesn't work in the long term.
And let me make that connection right here. I want to make it super crystal clear. I think one way, my child thinks another way. I can tell them and threaten them. I say, you will do this or you'll get this punishment. It's not likely to work. The best thing I can do is persuade them until they agree and they say, yeah, man, you're right, Dad. I'm not going to do that. Done. Problem solved.
Exactly.
I don't have to threaten them. I don't have to bribe them. I don't have to punish them because they, in their own mind, said, yeah, you're right. I don't want to do that.
Right. Because I want different results. I want different outcomes.
You want your kids to want the better outcomes. And if your kids want the better outcomes, they're going to go get them.
Exactly.
Mistakes are going to be rare.
You don't have to make them do it because they already want to do it.
But as long as you want one thing and they want another thing, and all you have is threats of punishments and bribes, that's a suck sandwich for years.
Yeah. Okay, number 4. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one because I have a whole course on it, and we have some other episodes about it. But it's still, I have to mention it because it's still key and critical to this whole topic of avoiding tantrums, parenting without yelling. Part of the key is use family systems to reduce chaos. When you have systems in place, that includes routines, that includes expectations. When you have that in place, it reduces a lot of friction because you're not seemingly out of the blue saying, I need you to do this. And your child's like, what? Blindsided. Like, what do you mean I need to do this? I don't even know how to do that. You've never asked me to do that before. It's so much more work. There's so much more inertia there because you don't have these smooth operating systems that help reduce the friction. Now, when some people think that a system means a very strict, rigid schedule. I'm not talking about that. In fact, I don't think they're healthy. It's not healthy to have these very strict, rigid schedules, right? Family life is much more dynamic and flowing than that. But
it's not chaotic and unorganized either.
Yeah, it shouldn't be to the other extreme. I love the yin and yang because it should not be all the way to the other extreme of no chaos or no systems, no order, no expectations. Like that also is a form of chaos that is detrimental to your family life. So you've got to find that yin and yang balance so that a lot of the friction is reduced. It's easier to get things done. It's easier to ask someone to do something and it happens without everything being a battle or a power struggle or an argument, right? And it also kind of ties into what we talked about, just having clarity. Like if you're clear about, hey, I expect the dishwasher to be loaded and unloaded. I expect the garbage to be taken out. I expect this room to, stay in this level of order. Then you're not constantly trying to fight to get that stuff to happen because people just realize, oh, this is how we do things. This is how things are done in our home.
And expectations have to be realistic for the kids and the age and the stage of life. Too many parents have very unrealistic expectations. That's terrible.
Exactly.
Or they have no expectations, which is terrible. And kids do not thrive in either one of those worlds.
Yeah.
This comes up so often in coaching programs still. Even people who have bought your charts and systems course and they know they still aren't doing it. I'll meet with the clients after a long time, like, okay, tell me about your morning routine. They're like, oh man, it's kind of just put together. It's not very good. Or what about evening routines? Like, okay, how are you making sure your kids have a daily checklist of things they should be working on? Well, we talked about it once, but we never, like, bro, like you're making this so much harder than it needs to be. Put systems in place.
Because those simple things right there that you just quickly mentioned make such a huge difference in how the day goes. When your children, and because we've trained our children get up and they start being productive right away.
And
we don't have to tell them.
Like it.
We don't have to get after them. They're all homeschooled, so it's not like they have to get up and get dressed if they didn't want to, but they do. They get up, they get dressed, they make their beds, they start they brush their teeth, they brush their hair, they start being
exercise,
productive.
study.
They exercise, they get right into their studies. All of those things happen without you and I saying anything.
Right.
And that's from age 8 to currently at home 19. So,
And that's because we do that, and we've done
well,
it since before they were born.
that's part of it, but it's also because I made the investment of creating the charts and the systems and the checklists and the routines so that initially, yeah, they've followed all those things and they checked them off. They don't really do that. They don't really have the charts anymore because it's all now just a part of who they are.
Automated, yeah.
But because I made that investment of making it a part of who they are, now it pays off dividends.
Yep.
So I do have actually a free family charts starter kit. So that would be a place to start if you don't know where to start.
Look, Rachel's charts the system.
Well,
she did it all for you, so get it.
that's
Everyone
nice
listening,
too.
just
I'm
get
just
the thing.
saying.
It's so cheap, and she did all the work. She'll save you hundreds of hours. It's solid. There's so many options in there with examples and everything, so get it. If you already have it, like a lot of you listening already have it, you're not using it. Get in there, use it. Like, make the time and effort to get systems and strategies in place. It'll totally transform your life.
Yeah. But I'm just saying it's actually on the same page. You can get one or the other or all. It's up to you. But I'm saying you can start out with a simple, because the checklist starts with just like the morning routine. It's where I have them start. It starts with the morning routine for the kids because that's a great way to get them into this forward motion of being proactive and taking action and doing the things that are expected. So you have these systems and routines that just make family life smoother.
Yep.
So that's a great place to start, or you just get the whole system and it'll walk you through the whole
Now,
thing.
our lives are very unconventional. And sometimes when we tell people our lives, or we share it online, like, hey, we traveled the world with our family and we're doing this, we're doing that. We'll often get a lot of negative comments. Oh,
kids need structure.
Your kids are going to be losers.
Routines.
They're never going to succeed in life. They have to have routine and structure. And we're like, yeah, like our whole world is built. Like our family, the Denning family world, our whole life. Our extraordinary life is built on routine and structure. So it's not location dependent. Wherever we go and our unconventional our life is, we live by routines.
Yeah.
And those everybody does. But our routines and good routines actually support your success, where many routines sabotage your success.
Yeah.
And so you want to build it in a way that supports your family.
Exactly. Okay, number 5. This is obviously, like all of them, very important, but it's something that too many parents do not fully understand because there is a faulty belief in our society that children have certain abilities that they just do not have. And when we understand that they don't have those abilities, then it makes our lives as parents so much easier. And so this one is lead with emotional co-regulation. And what does that mean? Essentially, what it means is that children, and in this definition, I'm going to include perhaps up to the age of 25, do not have the ability to self-regulate. Now, that's going to vary in levels according to their age and maturity, but children are born without a prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that regulates emotion. And the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until the age of 25. So your child very likely literally lacks the ability to self-regulate their emotions. And unfortunately, because we've been indoctrinated inappropriately in society, we have been taught to believe that children can self-soothe, even babies. And that is just not true. In fact, it is a lie. And that is what creates so many attachment disorders, which then create behavior problems throughout the life of a child. A child cannot self-regulate. They have to have co-regulation. When they were in the womb, they were regulated by your emotions. If you were stressed, they were stressed. If you were calm, they were calm. They still need that from the age of birth, 0, until they learn how to do it. And that's going to depend on the child and their own uniqueness. So we have to, and I realize when I say this, we have to help them co-regulate. Many of us do not know how to even regulate ourselves.
That's what I was
which
thinking.
is part of the problem.
And I want to add a couple of different words here. It's like we don't even know how to process. How do we process our thoughts, our emotions? How do we process an experience that was challenging and difficult? some kind of stressful thing.
How do we process our big traumas, big T traumas, and our little T traumas?
Most people don't know how. They don't have that
Mhm.
skill set. So it has to be intentionally developed and cultivated. Children and adults need to be taught how to do this. So one of the major roles of parenting is learning how to do it yourself and then teaching your children how to process.
Exactly.
So when you're very upset, how do you get over it?
Mhm.
When you're hurt, how do you get over it?
Mhm.
When you feel depressed or discouraged or hopeless, what do you do to move past that?
Yeah.
Figure that out and teach that to your children, because if you don't teach them, who will? They
Right.
may never end up having the skills to do it, even if they are over 25. Like
Exactly.
just growing up won't necessarily give you the skills
Right.
to
It doesn't.
regulate or
Yeah.
process.
It's true. It doesn't. Just because your prefrontal cortex is now fully developed doesn't mean you know how to regulate or process emotions. And so, if we as parents don't learn how to do it and then teach our children, they don't learn how to do it. And that is why many parents are struggling with this, because they weren't they weren't taught how to do it
Right.
themselves. So it, it's kind of this catch 22 in a way of like, well, we can't parent our children as well as we need to because we haven't learned how to regulate ourselves. And yet, ironically, so many parents say things to their kids like, control yourself or get over it or deal with it. And the kids are like,
How?
how?
Right.
I have no idea. And we're not teaching them how. And so they just they don't know. And then we wonder why they have all these misbehaviors and they're acting out and they're throwing tantrums and like they're emotionally dysregulated. It's because they haven't learned they have not been co-regulated with their parents. So in very simple, basic ways, of course, it starts with babies by responding to their cries. So many mothers ignore their babies, or they'll say, well, I'm not feeding the baby yet because it's not time to feed the baby. Like that doesn't help. The baby has no idea about your schedule, and neither do they care about it.
Right.
So when a baby cries, meet its needs, whether that's hungry or tired or just want to be held. Meet the baby's needs. That's how it starts. But then it also is like when we're talking about tantrums and helping children, tantrums often occur because a child has literally reached their limits. It's like a mom being burnt out, touched out, and like losing it. That's the same thing. That's what a tantrum is. But we want to punish them where a mother wants empathy and sympathy and someone to, like validate her feelings. But we don't do that with a child, and that's wrong. We need to validate their feelings of like, oh my gosh, you're so overwhelmed, you're so stressed, you're so tired, you're so touched out, you're so overstimulated. Let me help you regulate. Let me co-regulate with you. So I'm going to hold you. Like the best thing you can do with a tantrum is hold the child and love them and make them feel like it's okay. Let me help you calm down. Let's take some deep breaths together. Let's get some food. Let's go lay down. Like anything you would do to help yourself feel better, help them do that rather than isolating them, threatening them, and punishing them for having their emotions. Like, how would you feel if somebody did that to you when you had reached your limits? Don't do that to your children. I get so upset about it because I want to speak out for children. They need a voice. They need someone there on their side to help them and protect them. They need you to be the adult to help them figure this world out. That's our role. That's why we are their parents, to help them learn how to live in this world. So we're the ones that have to figure this out. So that for ourselves and for them.
And I think every mom and dad has gotten to a point where they just lose it. They're so
Which is a
stressed, they're
parent tantrum.
so worn out, they're so overwhelmed. Yeah, it's an adult tantrum. And I everybody listening can relate to this, because you can think of a time when you lost it. And in that moment when you lost it, what if your spouse came in and punished you?
Yeah.
Smacked you, put you in solitary confinement. Like, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to be like, you knock this crap off. Like, how you would feel so horrible, because you
And that's
already feel
exactly
horrible.
what a child feels like.
Right.
They can't articulate that and they can't share those feelings with you,
I
but
have
that's how
just
they feel.
reached my limits and I don't know what to do with all of this.
Mhm.
And so I'm just going to lose it. And then they get punished for it.
Yeah.
And so if we can prevent it and then handle it tactfully, bring them back down, then gradually those explosions stop happening.
Well,
They go away.
because in that process of co-regulation, they learn what to do to help themselves calm down because mom has helped me do that.
Right.
She's told me, take the deep breath. She's told me to come over and cuddle with her. She's told me to go take a nap or to get some food. And all of those things are proactive actions they can take with training to then calm themselves down. So then they don't have to get to a tantrum.
Exactly.
But the reason kids get to tantrums again and again and again, because they don't have any other option.
Well,
They don't know what else to do.
And they've often been ignored up to the point of
Yes.
explosion where
Many
we're just
tantrums
not
occur
aware
because
enough.
parents are ignoring them. And then the more they start to act out, the more they ignore them, which then just leads to tantrums.
Explosion. Yeah. You can't not. So lean in earlier, far earlier.
Exactly.
Help them process and regulate, and then the tantrums go away.
Yeah. And so, of course, we could go on a lot more about what co-regulation looks like, but
we'll do that.
Here we're going to do that in the course. Here we just want to introduce the idea of like you have to be co-regulating if you want to avoid yelling, and if you want, because again, the regulating yourself is what helps you avoid yelling. Again, if we look at it as an adult tantrum, you yell because you've reached your limits.
Yep.
But if you learn to regulate, you don't have to yell. And if you learn to help your children by co-regulating with them, they don't have to have tantrums.
Yep.
Okay, number 6, last one. We have to build resilience through connection and challenge. So I hope in all of this, you're not taking away this idea that we are these gentle parents that are all touchy-feely and like, don't do anything hard or expose our kids to any hard things. That is not true. And if you know anything about us, you know that that's not true, that we're often challenging our children, and they've done very challenging things, including 2 of our teenagers summoning Mount Kilimanjaro. They've done very challenging, hard things.
To the point where I would easily put my teens up against almost any adult and be like, bring it on. Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
Let's see if
kids
you
can handle it.
March all night long with a 50
That's another thing they've done. Yes.
in the cold and just deal with the suck and the grind and do it pleasantly with smiles and jokes and conversations and push past all your limits. Let's see how you handle that crap. Because our kids can do that, because that's the framework we operate in. Like, we want to be tough, and we want our kids to choose to be very tough. So we are in no way, shape, or form advocating or condoning this easy, comfortable life where there's no stress and no struggle.
Yeah.
And people misunderstand that all the time. They're like, oh, your kids are going to be the biggest lazy losers. They're never going to be able to do anything hard. They're never fit in the world. And I'm just chuckling. I'm chuckling.
What?
Is it? I'm laughing, right? Because I'm like, this is so silly and so far from the truth. So challenge matters, but it's connection and challenge, meaning
because the connection has to happen first.
That
has to be there.
am going with them. So I lead my children through challenge. I always have since they were born. I would carry them, sometimes 2 or 3 of them, into insanely difficult areas, and they're watching me
After they had reached their own limits.
Yeah, so they go to their limits, and then I carry them.
Right.
And they're watching me, even little, they're just making these cognitive connections. They're just watching me sweat and struggle and strain, and I'm smiling and like, this is the best. Oh my goodness, this hurts. And they watch that their whole lives. And then I'm leading the way through difficulty and like, hey, let's go in, let's push ourselves, let's push our limits, let's go. They're watching me do it well, and we're connected. We have a great bond. And I say, hey, I'm going to go do something really hard. You want to come? And they're like, yes, please.
Yeah.
Where do I sign up? I'm in.
Well, and the key framework to understand this with, and this actually comes from clinical psychology, is that children, well, everybody, but in this scenario, our children have to choose to opt into the challenging things. If people are forced to do things they're afraid of or don't want to do, like literally the research is out there, it's detrimental to them. But if they do the same thing, the very same activity, but they chose to do it it produces a completely different positive result. So we have to allow them to opt into the challenge. And one of the best ways to do that is, one, by having a great connection with them. So you've been building a connection with them from the time they're a baby, or rebuilding that connection if you didn't when they were young.
So they trust you.
So they trust you, because that's a key part of connection is trust. And then you're leading out by taking on the challenges.
And
That's
sometimes
the magic
that
formula.
means when they're younger, they're like, yeah, I'm not so sure, Dad. And I do it anyways. And they watch me and they're like, wow, okay, he did it. He just jumped off that huge cliff. Or he just did the bungee jumping. He just jumped out of that airplane. He just did that insane hike or mountain bike, or he just did a triathlon or a endurance race. Wow. Or he went and climbed that mountain. He came back and told me the stories. Like, that's whoa. And you're planting all these seeds. So when they're ready, they're like, hey, Dad, I want to give it a go this time. And so one of our younger teens attempted Kilimanjaro, and he got sick and just was exhausted. And he's like, I'm out, right? No shaming, no nothing. It's like he was
in fact
younger.
praised for how far he made it, which was above 16,000 feet or something.
Yeah, he made it up close to 17. You're like, bro, that's amazing. That's higher than most people have
And
been.
he
Way to
was
go. Fantastic.
13 at the
13
at the time.
And so made a great job. And so then I told him I was going to go back and make another attempt next year. And he came up the other day. He's like, yeah, I think I want to go back and do it. Right. It's awesome.
Challenge by choice.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, you can also do this in smaller ways as well, because if our children, and one of the things that happens, I think, is that either parents are afraid of things or children are afraid of things. And so they end up avoiding them as part of your life, right? It's just, oh, well, we don't do that thing because I'm afraid of it, or the kids are afraid of it. And that's not a healthy way to develop, because we have to be regularly confronting and facing fears and moving through them. So if there are things that you're afraid of, especially because we're leading out, if you're afraid of something, let your kids know, but then let them see you facing those fears, even in small ways.
So thanks for bringing this up. It's huge. I see it every day. So many parents just stay away from all their fears. They hide from their own fears and their insecurities. And boy, they're going to protect their kids from those scary things. And so the kids even grow up with greater fears and insecurities. And they're even more sheltered and protected
magnified in the next generation
from things that aren't even that scary. But it was your own fear that you wouldn't lean into. And I mean, this is across the board, but I especially see it really pronounced with moms. And again, moms are out there to be protective, to have that voice of like safety, and that's a good thing. But some moms err so far on the side of safety, their poor kids never know how to do anything. Try anything, won't go out there because mamas, and we see this, like, we let our kids go out and try things and climb trees, and like moms be like, no, don't ever, never, I'm never, ever letting my kid climb a tree because they could fall and break something. And I mean, these extremes, like,
well,
wow, like your kid's going to have to live in a padded circular room its whole life. That's not a good way to live.
One of the comments I did get on Instagram, because I posted a reel, and our son, who probably at the time was, I don't know, 15 or 16, was climbing a coconut tree with a machete in his mouth so that he could actually get us breakfast for that day, because we were camping on a beach in Mexico and we were going to be eating coconuts for breakfast. And
he's been doing this since he was.
He has been climbing coconut trees since. No, he's been climbing coconut trees since he was 3. Not with a machete at the time, but as he got older, he climbed it with machetes, because that's what the locals do. He grew up in Guatemala and Costa Rica and the Dominican Republic, and he learned how to do those things. So he's competent and he's capable. But so many people on there were just so freaked out by that. Like, how could you let your son do such a dangerous thing to climb a coconut tree with a machete? And the reality is that, for some people's children, there's no way they should be doing that, because they are going to hurt themselves.
They shouldn't climb a tree or have a machete.
Right.
And never combined.
But here's what they don't understand. The difference lies in competence. Right. When you allow your children to push limits and face fears safely, they actually grow in competence, and then you're able to do things that, yes, to other people are very dangerous, but to you is less dangerous, because you have the competence.
Exactly.
I think a perfect example of this, and this happens all the time. You need to realize though that that's a thing. We were living in Georgia, the state. I think it was during COVID, and we went to, I think it was like a lake or a river, and you, with our children, most of them, swam from the one side over to the other side. It wasn't even that far. Like what, 30, 40, 50 feet maybe?
Oh, no, it was it was a lot further than that. It would have been a couple hundred.
Oh, okay.
At least.
Well, I'm.
But still, like, so we were in great shape. It was my two boys. I mean, they have 6-pack abs. They're strong swimmers. So we swam all the way
been
across the
swimming,
back.
and we'd already lived in like
Like
30, 40, 50, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of countries. And anyways, you swam over there, you swam back, and the police came over and got after you.
He was so upset. He was in furious. Just, how could you do that? How do you take your children? You're all gonna die. I'm like, bro, like, we do triathlons. Like
And trek to the base camp of Mount Everest
10 times this. And I'm like, and I'm an EMT and I do rescue stuff. Like, I've been training water. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, and he's of course fat. And he said, this is dangerous. People die. You could drown. I'm like, yeah, if you don't know how to swim, give me a break. But in his mind, he couldn't make it across. And other little local tourists that are completely out of shape and don't know how to swim, they couldn't make it across.
Therefore, it's dangerous and no one should
for
do it.
everyone.
Yes.
And like, I have a friend who goes out and he'll swim 2 miles in the ocean as a meditation.
Right.
And, it would be illegal for that guy to swim 200 yards across the water because it's dangerous.
And so the idea here is that as we continue to push limits and push boundaries and grow in skill, things that were dangerous or are dangerous to other people are no longer dangerous because you have improved or increased your skill and ability. That's the idea behind building resilience, behind building competence, behind taking on challenge, because you're going to be more well-rounded, you're going to be more well-adjusted because you have more skills and capability. And this is true physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like in all ways. We grow more holistically when we, instead of shying away from the things we're afraid of, we actually lean into them and help them become more capable and competent.
Yes.
Let them help us become that way.
Love it. Okay, there's so much more. We can keep going on forever, and we will. That's why we created the course. That's why we do the coaching. It works. We have results in our families. Our coaching clients get the results. We create transformations for families all the time. This stuff just works when it's done consistently and well, and it's worth every effort we put in to help raise our kids.
Every investment.
Okay, love you guys. Reach upward.